off his appearance in the NFC Championship, his rookie season, we turn our attention to Jayden Daniels in Washington. The Commanders made some big moves this offseason. They traded for Deebo Samuel, which gives Jayden Daniels another weapon alongside Terry McLaurin. In an effort to protect Daniels, they acquired Laramie Tunsil from the Texans and drafted tackle Josh Connerly Jr. in the first round. On defense, they used their second-round pick on corner Trey Amos, and their biggest signing on that side was Javon Kinlaw. Of course, a lot of big names they've added. I'm excited to see how that all comes together. Marcus, defensive coordinators have had a whole offseason, right, to watch the tape on Jayden Daniels, to plan for next season. We know about that adjustment period that sometimes happens, but if you were in those meetings, what would your focus be?
First, my focus would be, how in the hell are we supposed to stop him when you can't play with 13 people? That would be my first question. The second one I would ask is, how do we want to make Jayden Daniels play? And I think you implement what teams tried to do to Lamar, and then Lamar started taking advantage of keep him in the pocket. And I know it sounds simple, because the back-breaking plays happen when he's outside of the pocket, either with his legs or being able to get the ball out of his hands. But now it's about condensing. Now it's about having a rush plan that's very smart, having 4 guys up front that hopefully you can try to get after the quarterback without having to commit more guys into the rush. And then at times, take your chances with pressure. The problem is he's so advanced at playing from the pocket. He understands that rhythm and timing. And what does the Commanders do? They go and make it harder by adding Deebo Samuel, a guy that you can get the ball in multiple ways without Jayden Daniels having to push the ball down the field and still making explosive plays. So it'll be interesting to see how they would defend him, but that would be the plan that I would deploy.
I love what Swagger was saying, especially the perspectives. He's a defensive lineman. I was a cornerback. So when he says that, keep him in the pocket, we had to trust those big guys up front that they were going to actually keep him in the pocket, and the plays weren't going to be 10 seconds long. But he said, you think about it last year, Cliff Kingsbury comes over. He's a first-time coordinator for the Commanders. I love that. And then Jayden Daniels, he's a rookie. So teams are going in not knowing, all right, we're figuring out in the middle of the season, we're getting tempo. We're getting a bunch of 4x1 sets. Now going into year 2, everybody will expect that. But something that Marcus ended with, when you add a guy like Deebo Samuel for a second-year quarterback, give a new wrinkle. He is going to be that new wrinkle. Where they line him up, how they choose to use him. Will he be in the backfield? Will he do some of the things that an Austin Eckler did last year? Will he be able to throw those screens out to him on the outside? And then the second part of it is protection for a quarterback going into year 2. We saw C.J. Stroud this past year struggle with getting hit and his offensive lineman giving up sacks. You bring in a Laramie Tunsil and you solidify that offensive line, that gives Jayden Daniels all the confidence in the world.
Yeah, Deebo averaged the most yards after the catch per reception among wide receivers last season. I feel like the trust circle was a heart more than it was a circle.
I love you too, Swag.
It was cute.
Because it's love. It's love involved. It's love involved.
I'm acting like I'm part of it. I'm not part of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know D lineman. All right, Bo Nix, let's go to that.
You my TV.
Thank you. Bo Nix was the last of the first-round quarterbacks selected last season, but he led the Broncos to the playoffs as a rookie. And the Broncos got Nix some help on offense with the signing of Evan Ingram, who has the second most receptions among tight ends over the last 3 seasons, of course. They also addressed the offense in the draft with R.J. Harvey and Pat Bryant. On defense, they got 2 big playmakers from the 49ers in Talanoa Hufanga and Drake Greenlaw. Plus, they drafted corner Jahdae Barron in the first round. That was a sneaky, really good pickup. Now, as for Nix, year 1, it was really good, right? I'm sure Sean Payton will have a list of things he wants to see his quarterback improve on. Tim, for you, where would you start?
I think where I would start is this. I felt like at times he was really streaky. When he was on, he was really good. Like, go look at week 17 this past year. It was like he couldn't miss. Then there were games where it was like he couldn't get in a rhythm. You know, it was like hovering around 50% completion percentage. Felt like there were times that he was off and he couldn't find it. And I think that's a little bit of who he is and who he was in college. So, you know, kind of dialing that in and then growing as a passer from inside the pocket. You know, I think one thing that was absolutely evident is like when you watch him play and you watch them move him around, he was really good. And Sean Payton did an excellent job of leaning into that with Bo Nix. I think the growth from inside the pocket, much like you see from a lot of young quarterbacks, is where you can see the biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. But make no mistake about it, to do what he did this year in the AFC West, with all the expectations of all those teams in that division, to do what he did, throwing 20 passes, running for another 4, he had an outstanding rookie season.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get better, and I think Sean Payton is going to continue to do a good job around him.
And that was an outstanding rookie season on a team where I think the organization felt like they needed to add more offensive firepower. So what are the Broncos doing for agency? They go out and grab and sign Evan Ingram, who was a weapon in Jacksonville when he was healthy. They go into the draft and use a second-round draft pick on running back R.J. Harvey. They get Bo Nix another weapon. They get him the semblance of a run game. And Tim, you're talking about what Bo Nix showed people in his rookie year and the qualities that he demonstrated. I think if you're going to speak to the people in the Broncos organization, his growth should be that much greater in a second year when he's surrounded by more weapons than he had during his rookie season in Denver.
Yeah, it seems like they're making all the right moves there for Bo Nix. And, of course, Sean Payton will have so many things up his sleeve, as Tim alluded to. Now, we do have some contract news here on NFL Live, new on the show. Adam, what's going on?
They've signed their linebacker, Andrew Van Ginkel, to a one-year, $23 million extension. That includes $22.4 million guaranteed. If people watched the way that Van Ginkel affected the game this year after he left Miami, they saw the type of impact he had on the Vikings defense. It was huge. The Vikings recognized it, and today they signed him to a one-year extension, giving him a raise and keeping him in Minnesota for another year.
Another great option for J.J. McCarthy as he's with Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis. I mean, it's kind of a who's who list in a lot of ways. And J-Mac, you're still pretty plugged in, right, with the Pats. What did you make of their roster rebuild this offseason?
Well, it lets you know that they love Drake May. And I look on top of that, Mike Vrabel. He was a guy that was a hot name as far as the offseason when it comes to coaches. He chose to go to New England. A lot of that had to be because of who was under center at the quarterback position. And then you talk about free agency, spending the most money. Then you go to the draft. You get a guy like Will Campbell. Draft night, you wonder what a guy's going to say. He's emotional. He just got drafted. He'll die to protect Drake May. That's how much he loves this new team already. He's going to fit right in. Something that they were lacking on offense, I felt like, was big playability. Being able to throw a screen pass out to a guy like Kyle Williams and let him make a few guys miss and take it the distance. And then Travion Henderson, the running back from Ohio State, a guy that can pass protect one on third down, but a guy that is different with the ball in his hands, which will be a nice change of pace from Ramondre Stevenson, the lead back for the New England Patriots.
There is a very I would say a very bad stench because my organization and franchise has been a victim of what I watch New England do, and that's because I've watched the Eagles do it for years, and that is what this looks like. This looks like the confidence in a young quarterback. Now let's go out and put pieces around him offensively and defensively as well. And we know Mike Vrabel calling card. We know that he wants to play elite level defense, but more importantly,